Hey guys, welcome back to MCReviews. It's Pete here to continue on the Prelude EP review. Today we're going to be reviewing Elemental, which is the it's the third track off the EP technically, but of the three we're reviewing, this is the second one. So this is going to be another one of those awkward middle episodes where there's nothing to introduce at the beginning and there's nothing to talk about at the end. So this will definitely be a shorter video, which I don't know if that's better or worse, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy the review. So before we get into talking about this song, I'd kind of like to discuss my discovery of this EP, because I discovered it really late down the line in my history as a Monster Cat fan. So I feel like by this point in being a Monster Cat fan, I know most of everything like the back of my hand. Most EPs, most LPs, most songs. You say name a song from, what's this song, what album is that from? I'll say it like that, like bang, easy. But this EP was one that I didn't know all that well, mostly just because I disregarded it as being like 90% piano tracks, even though in the end it's like 40% piano tracks, which to be fair is almost half. But because of that, I never really knew any of the songs on there apart from Canvas as being non-piano songs. So when I did go back and listen to it, which was before I went to review it by the way, but it was only a month or two ago, I realized that this EP is more than that. So most of everything I talk about for the rest of this review series with this song and The Journey is mostly recent discovery and thoughts, so just keep that in mind. So this song starts off with chords and a melody from an instrument that the name of it is just hanging on the end of my tongue, but I really can't think of it. But it's cool whatever it is. Very shortly after the song begins, the beat comes in, starting off being quite muffled and distorted, but becomes clearer as it goes on. And what a beat this is. It's definitely not fast enough to be considered breaks, but it has the same kind of sporadic and free-form feel to it, which I love so much about breaks beats. A lot of the time it also has this sound in it that almost sounds like a mini drum roll, which really adds to the feeling that this beat sounds like it could actually be someone playing the drums, which is an image that I really love when songs give me, but very few do. After the beat and melody play together for a short time, we go right into the first drop. This song has a super short intro and gets into the drop very quickly, so I don't really have much to say about it. This drop, and all the other ones in this song, is primarily run by vocal chops, with any non-vocal chop sounds being the backing for the most part. The main two vocal chops are this one male one that doesn't really say anything that I can distinguish in words, except for I can make up the word walls being in there at some points, and the other one acts as an accessory and is a female one that to me sounds like it's saying "said the sky." And that's just my personal interpretation. Though the vocal chops are the lead, they're definitely not the highlights of this drop, as everything that backs the drop is what makes it awesome, like the amazing beat and the supporting bass, as well as choir backing. This drop is terrifyingly short though, only lasting 20 seconds before we move right into the midsection. This drop and all the other ones are good, but it's not the drops that make this song, as you'll see soon enough. The midsection starts off being pretty much nothing but chords. Chords that are made by a sound that I cannot describe, but I absolutely love. Shortly after the chords are introduced, the beat is also reintroduced, as well as another male vocal chop that leads the section. After this section, the reverse of the start of this section happens, and the beat is taken out and we were left with nothing but the chords and a small portion of the vocal chop, before white noise builds us right into the second drop. The second drop is very similar to the first, with only a few new additions, those being a choir in the background. Actually, now that I'm reading this back, the choir was in the background in the first drop as well, but it's actually turned up a lot in this drop, which I said here is a great addition, but it isn't really an addition, but it's taken advantage of better here. And as well as that, we've got what sounds like strings making a long drawn out backing that comes in about halfway through the drop, which really feels like it blends together with the choir in the background to just make this awesome emotional backing. Normally I would have scolded a song like this for reusing the same, or at least very similar drop twice in a row like this, but the drop before this only lasted 20 seconds, so I think I can give it a break. Since this drop is so similar to the one that came before it though, I have very few other comments to make except for the additions and changes that I already mentioned. But something seems wrong here, doesn't it? I don't feel like I've been talking about this song for all that long, and 2 drops have already been covered, which for some songs would be all the drops and everything there is to offer, and we could be in the ending by now. But we're not even halfway through the song yet. Well, this will all make sense very soon as I begin to talk about the longest, and in my opinion, the best section of this song, the second midsection. Which is a pretty unusual part of a song to be the best bit, isn't it? This section begins after the drop completely cuts out and we are left with nothing but chords and the Said the Sky vocal chop. After this, the beat comes back in and one of the 2 best portions of this song, by far in my opinion, begins. I feel like this bit requires a bit of an explanation in order to understand why it's so cool and interesting, so I'll explain it here. Basically, how this section works is, at the beginning of every phrase, the beat pretty much goes completely out of whack and all over the place in a really drum breaky kind of way, which is awesome, but ends after a little while and goes back to the normal beat. But as each phrase happens, the complex drum patterns last longer and longer until it happens 3 times back to back, and it's just crazy all over the place drums the whole time, which is so cool, and I love this bit so much. Considering I really like complex beats in songs, this bit just has me enthralled the entire time. But after that happens, it leads us into the next section of the song. So apart from what I just explained, the only other bit of progression that's here is a long drawn out synthy sound that acts as backing that comes in about halfway through this section, and it's great. So the next section begins when the section before it, the drum bit that I just talked about, pretty much fades into nothing, and we begin with a melody that gives me massive White City and World's End vibes if you've heard those Day One songs from 12, but just a bit spacier. This bit is really simplistic in a lot of ways, but it's honestly beautiful. As well as the spacey melody, there is long drawn out backing that at different times sounds like a mixture of strings and choir. This whole section has a really echoey vibe to it, which along with the melodies give it that spacey feel that I was talking about, that kind of comes out of nowhere in this song considering the rest of it doesn't have that vibe at all, but that's just part of what makes it so awesome. It's just a complete change of pace in the middle of the song, and I love that. Anyway, after a while, a beat comes into this section and carries us into the 3rd and final drop of the song. Alright, the 3rd drop is pretty much identical to the 2nd, the only difference being the strings is the backing from the start, not halfway through. Also, when I first listened to this song, I was really disappointed that Rezonate didn't make a drop out of the whole spacey bit, as that would have been an awesome way to end the song, and I still stand by that, but I'll talk about that more later. This song's ending is super short as well, it's literally just the beginning of the second midsection, but it doesn't have a beat, and it just fades out after like 20 seconds. I literally have nothing to say on it. So for the overall and discussion section, I'm just going to start by talking about the things I didn't like about the song. I don't like that it uses 3 drops that are very similar, especially the 2nd and the 3rd are the most similar to one another, which I didn't mind as much the first couple of times because the first drop was really short and the 2nd drop had a few big differences from the 2nd, which meant that I didn't mind the fact that the 2 drops were very similar, but by the 3rd drop, which is almost identical to the 2nd, I'm kind of just done hearing this drop, and I don't like the repetition of it. My favourite part of the song, the spacey bit, is way too short as well, considering how awesome it is, and the whole mood and tone it sets isn't taken anywhere towards the end of the song, and instead, it just plays the same drop again and wastes that potential. Also, the ending is definitely lacking as well, considering it's just a copy-paste from a different part of the song and just fades out instead of ending in a clever or interesting way. But regardless of the flaws I just mentioned, this song has many upsides. The beat is absolutely amazing, having the sporadic and all over the place feel that I always love, which is great because even if I get bored of the main melodies, vocal chops and whatever of the song, I can just focus all my attention on the beat and I'm still completely enthralled and interested by it. The vocal chops really add to the mood that this song is going for, not sounding particularly happy or sad, but fitting somewhere in the middle, almost fitting into both depending on what surrounds the vocal chops. Also, all the surrounding instrumentals are just awesome, and all the backing chords and strings are just beautiful. Also, the second midsection is simply incredible, with the beat being taken to its full potential in one portion, and the spacey portion gives me a super melancholy feeling that most of these songs with a spacey feeling that kind of tend to go towards the more lonely and empty side of space tend to go for. The other example of being Galactic Voyage by Pixel is another one which gives me that kind of feeling. So from looking at the pros and cons of the song that I've just listed, I can see that for 75% of the song, it's an awesome and incredible track with few noticeable flaws, but the last quarter, which is the last drop in the ending, is really lacking and made out of copy-paste sections from other bits of the song, so that stops the song from being true 10 out of 10 level material. Not because the quality of the last quarter is low, but just because it had so much potential with the section that came before it, and coming out of that section, but it just plays it safe and copy-pastes, which is a real shame. Regardless of all that though, I still bloody love this song and think it's an incredible track, and the vibes it gives me and how immersed I feel the whole time I'm listening is just wonderful. So for that, it still gets an incredible 9 out of 10 from me. This track, when I think of it on a day-to-day basis, kinda comes off as a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 material for me, but every time I actually listen to it, I forget all of that and I get completely lost in the track. And though it's not without its flaws, I still feel like it's incredible. And the rating of incredible but not flawless is what I think 9 out of 10 is. So I think that suits it perfectly. Alright guys, so that was my review of Elemental. Thank you very much for watching, and please leave comments down in the description telling me if you agreed with me, disagreed with me, and your personal thoughts on the song. Next time, I'm going to be talking about the journey and wrapping up the EP. I'm sorry to anyone who is annoyed that I'm not talking about the piano tracks, but that'll just take more effort than I believe is necessary for tracks like that. So, next review, the journey, wrap up the EP, and then after that, we'll move on to the next EP. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.